you want to go for a walk? Even though you won't eat here? Okay. They went for a walk. Today is going to be a hard day for us. Today we are recapitulating. I think I remember one of you saying in your survey that one of your greatest fears was recapitulation. So I learned about recapitulation in a book called The Sorcerer's Crossing by Taisha Abelar. And she studied under the tradition of the Yaqui Indians, the Toltec tradition with Don Juan of Carlos Castaneda fame. And the story, as the story goes, a young woman goes and interacts with a healer and ends up spending days and days and days and days in a cave with a piece of paper, writing down the names of everyone she's ever can remember having crossed her path, and reconciling that relationship, thinking about it, thinking about what any sorts of regrets or attachments she still has, anything that was weird or wrong, anything that was good, and just going through and releasing all of that stored energy. That's a lot, and probably most of us don't have caves and days and days and days. So what I want to do is just tell you a little story about how a similar practice, a pared down version of this, really helped me. So I've already told my story a little bit about how, I grew up very troubled and struggled with depression and mental health and had a lot of things going on with my head and my body and my life, and kind of got it together through education and yoga and practice and perseverance. But still, I was having so many problems in my relationships. Now I'm straight. I have sexual relationships with men, and it just seemed to be such the bane of my existence. I was just constantly butting heads and ending up in these relationships with abusive people, getting lied to, but totally playing into it. And not to blame myself, but come on, I was doing a lot of really dumb shit and putting up with a lot of stuff that I didn't need to put up with, because I guess I just didn't value myself. But then someone says that to you and you're like, I really am trying to do better. And so finally, after one particularly upsetting and frustrating thing that went on for a year and a half and ended up with me realizing that I was lied to the entire time, then I ended up doing this recapitulation. And it took a few days of me, and I didn't do everyone who had ever crossed my path. I only did lovers. And the reason I did that is because I had a therapist one time teach me this exercise about, if you're a woman, anyone who's ever been inside you. And if you're a man, anyone who you've ever been inside. I mean, it's a very intense connection, and there's friction, and there's molecules, and all sorts of things are mixing and crossing there. And so we have to be realistic about that. That leaves something behind. It leaves a mark. And it also does seem to leave sort of a psychic mark. And so this therapist taught me this technique of calling myself back to myself, of saying, imagining my life force coming up out of the head of that ex-boyfriend, flying through the sky and zoop, right back into me. So, and then you say a chant, come back to me, Heather. I need you here with me. Come back to me, Heather. I need you here with me. And it's a visualization, and it's a tool. It's yet another tool for our toolbox. And as you do it, you just keep imagining. And then you say, Joe Bob, I release you. And you imagine their energy going up out of you and back into Joe Bob. Goodbye, Joe Bob. No hard feelings. Moving on. And so what I did in my recapitulation is I went through each of these names, and I went backwards in time, starting with the most recent one, because that's who I seem to be the most attached to. I went all the way back to the very first one, which was really kind of a fun ride. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And it was funny, and I was this walk down memory lane, and it was challenging, and every time I just said it 3 times. Come back to me, Heather. I need you with me. 3 times. And then I released them 3 times. See you later, Joe Bob. 3 times. Moving on to the next one. And, that was a huge turning point for me. And I think what happened was part of what happened was because I worked so hard on the recapitulation. It took days, okay? I had a few people, had just a few names on the list. Took a little while. And you can only do a couple at a time, and then you have to think about it, you have to rest, you have to do some breathing, some bee's breath, some go for a walk. It's like you can only really do so much in one sitting. So it took a little while to work through the list, and I felt like I had worked so hard. It was like I had built this little castle, sandcastle, and I wasn't too eager to have the ocean come and wash it away. I wanted to hold that space where I felt so pure and so clean. I was like listening to Madonna and just really enjoying that sense of wholeness of having recruited all of my missing pieces back into myself. And in psychology, they talk about dissociation. They talk about soul retrieval in shamanism, and I sort of felt like I had retrieved my soul. And even though I don't even necessarily know if I believe in the soul, but sometimes you just feel stuff, and it worked. And I was very, very cautious about who I let inside me again, because I just didn't want to risk any more of that kind of shit. And I tell you what, it wasn't very long. A few months later, I met this man, this wonderful man that I'm with now and have been with for a year. And, who knows what could happen, but we're set. We don't fight. It's awesome. It is quite possibly the only non-toxic relationship I've ever been in. So, recapitulation, that's your assignment today. Have a great time. And I'll write a little bit more about it in the worksheet. And I'm not expecting you to finish it today. Like I said, it's going to take time. It could take you a year to get through it, but this is the tool I'm teaching you today. That and the calling yourself back, and I'll write it all out. And have fun. Bye.